So my name is Alun Williams. I'm the father of Elis, who passed away in 2010. And we've been coming to Tŷ Hafan for about 7 years. At first it was a big shock, as we'd had 2 other children who were perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. And finding out that your child is life limited is just a huge shock to the system. It's difficult to deal with. Certainly when your wife's pregnant, she hasn't even given birth yet, and you're trying to work out in your head how to deal with it, and also try and keep sane at the same time. So as a dad and a husband, when you first find out the diagnosis, you think about a whole range of things that you think, could I have done something differently? Was it me? Is it something that my wife's done? Is it something that's just happened? And originally or initially, it's just pure shock. And as a man, and the first thing you want to do is make sure that everything's okay for the rest of the family, and that you want to protect them, and you don't want them to try and you want to shelter them from anything that's happening around them. At first, I closed up to everyone. I wouldn't speak to anyone. I was trying to be strong for the family, and then going away and having a meltdown myself, away from everyone else. No one could see I was in tears the whole time, and I even hid it from my wife and the children. It was one of these times where I felt alone. I couldn't feel I could speak to anyone. There were numerous times of crisis, pretty much because of what Elis had. Every week was a trip to hospital. But with the children being so small at the time, we had a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. So every time that Elis was taken into hospital, there was a mad panic on who would go in, who would stay with the children, could we take them all in? We couldn't all fit in the ambulance together. In some cases, we had to blue light her into the hospital. So it was always a mad panic, depending on what day of the week it was. It affected work, it affected home life, it affected your general well-being with sleep and just trying to cope. To deal with what I was going through, it was difficult to speak with friends. There were very few people at the time I could actually speak to. A lot of it I just dealt with myself. It was easier to speak with people you didn't know, because they didn't know your background, and you could let out more, rather than if you were speaking with friends and family. I was still a little bit holding a bit back, because at the end of the day, they're so close to you that you think, if I show any sign of weakness here or any hint that I'm going through something terrible, then it'll change the whole outcome of things. Whereas speaking with complete strangers, I found I was more at ease. It's hard to understand what it would be like if we hadn't have come to Tŷ Hafan. It was just something by chance that we'd spoken to one of the nurses, and she'd mentioned Tŷ Hafan. And then my wife made a few phone calls, and we heard all about the respite, because at the time it was such a struggle with young children trying to do anything. Just going out to the shops was a military operation because of the amount of kit that we had to take with us. And it was I felt, and certainly my wife felt, that it was starting to have an effect on the other 2 children. The support we had from Tŷ Hafan after Elis had passed away was amazing. It was one of these things. It's hard to put into words. There was so much available to us after speaking with people during their life here and then afterwards, that there was Siblings Day that we weren't even aware that existed, where other children could come together who had siblings who had passed away, that they were all in the same position. They could come together in a lovely place, in a lovely environment, and just play like children, rather than just being the children who had lost a sibling. They could come together. There was opportunities for us to talk to other parents who were in the same position, some who had children still at Tŷ Hafan and others who had lost children. We found it really beneficial that we could come to Tŷ Hafan and talk to people, without anyone judging you, and them understanding the things that you went through as well. It almost put you at ease in one respect, that you weren't the only people out there struggling. You could come together and you could sit down. I've made some brilliant friends, and I'll continue to support Tŷ Hafan as best I can, because my children have benefited so much from being here as well. To not just have the struggles of when she was alive, but then having to deal with the death as well, which I certainly still, even to this day now, it's been 8 years, that every day is hard. Every day you put a mask on, you put a brave face on everything, as my wife does. Nothing ever gets any easier. You just learn to deal with it. Certain things will still set me off now, where I'll just have a little thought, or a memory will come in, or I hear a piece of music, and again it'll just, floodgates will open. But I'll do it in my own way, away from people. I still haven't come to terms with it. I don't know if I'll ever come to terms with it. I know my wife will never come to terms with it. It's just one of those things.